In a kingdom where the stars don't just shine in the sky, they bloom in a garden. Each night as the sun slips behind the silver hills, Princess Elira steps quietly into her glowing garden, a place where dreams are born on petals and moonlight sings through the leaves. With a voice as gentle as a whisper and a heart full of wonder, she tends to the flowers that bloom only in the dark, star flowers that carry wishes into the sky. But one night, something unusual happens. A little star falls from the heavens, landing softly at her feet, tired, lost, and far from home. What begins as a quiet night becomes a journey through moonlit forests, still lakes, and sleeping mountains. With only her lantern, her lullabies, and her kindness, Princess Elira must return the star to the sky. Before the dream bells chime at midnight, step into a world of gentle magic, sleepy creatures, and glowing wonder, where dreams drift like petals on the wind. And peace follows every step. This is the story of the princess and the star garden. In the peaceful kingdom of Leora, where rolling meadows stretched like velvet beneath mountains that glowed with an inner silver light, there stood a castle of impossible beauty. Its towers reached toward the heavens like graceful fingers, each one crowned with crystalline spires that caught the moonlight and scattered it into dancing prisms across the land below. The castle was home to Princess Elira, a young woman whose very presence seemed to bring tranquility to all around her. Her quarters occupied the highest tower, where walls of pearl-white stone were adorned with tapestries that depicted scenes of starlit gardens and sleeping woodland creatures. Soft silk curtains and shades of lavender and silver billowed gently at her windows, moved by breezes that carried the scent of night-blooming jasmine and the distant music of wind chimes. Each evening, as the sun began its descent behind the silver hills, something magical occurred within the castle grounds. While ordinary gardens might close their petals and settle into darkness, Princess Elira's garden awakened with an ethereal luminescence that defied the natural order of day and night. The Star Garden, as it had come to be known throughout the kingdom, was a wonder beyond imagination. Here flowers bloomed only after sunset, their petals crafted not of ordinary matter, but of condensed starlight itself. Silver roses unfurled with petals that shimmered like captured moonbeams, their centers glowing with a soft, warm light that pulsed gently like a sleeping heart. Luminous lilies stood tall on stems of crystallized twilight, their trumpet-shaped blooms releasing tiny sparkles that drifted upward like miniature shooting stars. Princess Elira possessed a voice as gentle as morning mist and a heart that overflowed with wonder for all living things. Each night, she would descend the winding stone steps from her tower, her bare feet making no sound upon the cool marble as she approached her sanctuary. There, beneath the vast tapestry of the night sky, she would begin her nightly ritual of tending to her celestial garden. The garden was alive with gentle sounds that spoke of peace and contentment. Golden lanterns hung from delicate chains between the flowering arbors, their light warm and steady, creating pools of amber radiance that invited rest and reflection. Wind chimes crafted from hollow reeds and tiny silver bells created a melody, so soft it seemed to emerge from the very air itself. Above, clouds the color of fresh lavender drifted lazily across the star-studded expanse, while the leaves of ancient oak trees rustled with a sound like whispered prayers. As Princess Elira moved through her garden, the stars above seemed to blink in recognition, as if greeting an old and cherished friend. The entire kingdom rested beneath this canopy of gentle light, secure in the knowledge that their princess watched over them through the peaceful hours of night. The Star Garden was more magnificent than any mortal tongue could adequately describe. It existed in a realm between the earthly and the divine, where the laws of nature bent gracefully to accommodate wonders beyond ordinary comprehension. Each flower within its boundaries was not merely beautiful, it was alive with purpose and magic. The garden's pathways were paved with stones that seemed to contain captured starlight, glowing softly underfoot with each step Princess Elira took. Along these luminous paths grew flowers unlike any found in earthly soil. There were blossoms with petals so delicate they appeared to be made of crystallized moonbeams, their surfaces reflecting the night sky in ever-shifting patterns. Vines with leaves of silver and gold wound themselves around trellises of polished white wood, and these vines actually hummed, with a melody so low and sweet it could be felt more than heard. Throughout the garden, droplets of what appeared to be morning dew clung to every leaf and petal, but these were no ordinary dewdrops. They were moondrops, formed when moonlight condensed into liquid form, and they sparkled with an inner fire that made them appear as tiny stars resting upon the foliage. The most wondrous aspect of the star garden was its true purpose, known only to Princess Elira and the ancient gardeners who had tended it before her. Each flower within the garden represented the dream of someone within the kingdom of Leora. The silver roses carried dreams of love and companionship, their gentle glow pulsing in rhythm with the hearts of those who yearned for connection. The luminous lilies held dreams of adventure and discovery, their upward-reaching petals channeling the aspirations of those who longed to explore distant lands. Tiny forget-me-nots of pure light contained the dreams of children, simple and pure, and filled with wonder at the world around them. Each night, Princess Elira would begin her sacred ritual with the reverence of one who understood the profound responsibility she bore. She would move through the garden with steps as light as falling petals, carrying with her a basin crafted from mother-of-pearl that contained moon water, rainwater that had been blessed by lunar light and infused with the essence of peaceful sleep. She would approach each flower with infinite gentleness, her fingers barely brushing the petals as she whispered words of encouragement and hope. "Grow bright, little dream," she would murmur to a rosebud just beginning to open. "Find your way to the heart that needs you most." Her touch was so delicate that the flowers seemed to lean toward her as if drawn by the warmth of her compassion. As she worked, Princess Elira would hum lullabies that had been passed down through generations of her family, melodies that spoke of rest and comfort, of safety and love. The songs had no words, for their meaning transcended language, speaking directly to the soul in harmonies that resonated with the very foundations of peace. The moon water in her basin caught and reflected the light of the flowers as she carefully placed a single drop at the root of each plant. Where the water touched the earth, tiny sparkles would rise like fairy dust, and the flowers would pulse with renewed vigor. As her lullabies filled the air, something truly magical would occur. The dreams contained within each flower would begin to manifest as visible light. They rose from the petals like soap bubbles made of pure luminescence, each one carrying within it the hopes and desires of a sleeping soul. These dream bubbles would drift upward on the gentle night breeze, floating over the castle walls and across the kingdom, seeking the beds where dreamers lay in peaceful slumber. Princess Elira would watch with wonder that never diminished, no matter how many nights she had witnessed this miracle. She dipped her fingers in the cool, glowing water. She touched the petals, one by one, and the garden sighed gently as if expressing its gratitude for her tender care. In those moments, the princess felt connected to every living soul in her kingdom, bound together by the invisible threads of dreams and the promise of restful sleep. On this particular night, the air held a quality of expectation, as if the very atmosphere was holding its breath in anticipation of some momentous event. Princess Elira had completed her usual rounds of the garden, singing her lullabies to each flower and watching with her customary delight as the dream bubbles rose into the starlit sky. The moon hung full and luminous overhead, casting everything in shades of silver and pearl. She was preparing to make her final circuit through the garden when a sound reached her ears, a soft thud, so gentle it might have been mistaken for the falling of a large dewdrop or the settling of a butterfly upon a leaf. Yet something about the sound drew her attention with an urgency that made her heart quicken with curiosity rather than alarm. Following her instincts, Princess Elira made her way toward the sound's source, her feet carrying her to a secluded corner of the garden where her most precious silver roses grew. There, nestled among the luminous petals of her largest bloom, was something that made her gasp in wonder. It was a star, not a flower that resembled a star, but an actual star, fallen from the heavens above. No larger than her closed fist, it lay curled like a sleeping creature among the rose petals, its surface pulsing with a faint but unmistakable stellar light. Unlike the steady, distant twinkle of its celestial siblings overhead, this little star's glow was warm and intimate, pulsing gently like the breath of something very much alive. Princess Elira knelt beside the silver rose, her heart filled with a mixture of awe and concern. The star was beautiful beyond description, its surface seeming to contain entire galaxies in miniature, swirling patterns of light that shifted and danced even as she watched. But there was something unmistakably weary about its glow, a dimness that spoke of exhaustion and displacement. With infinite care, she extended her hands toward the fallen star, allowing it to sense her presence before making contact. The moment. Her fingers touched its surface. She felt a warmth that spoke of vast distances traveled and a longing for home that resonated deep within her own heart. The star was not merely tired, it was lost, separated from its place in the cosmic dance and uncertain of how to find its way back. "Oh, little one," Princess Elira whispered, her voice carrying all the gentleness of which she was capable. "You're so very far from where you belong, aren't you?" The star pulsed once, brighter than before, and in that pulse she sensed its gratitude for her understanding. Carefully she cupped it in her palms, feeling its weight, surprisingly substantial for something that appeared to be made of pure light, and its warmth against her skin. As she held the star close to her heart, Princess Elira became aware of a change in the garden around her. The moonlight seemed to flicker, as if responding to the presence of this celestial visitor. The flowers themselves appeared to lean in, their luminous petals turning toward the star like compass needles pointing toward true north. Even the wind, chimes hung motionless, as if the very air was listening. In that moment of perfect stillness, Princess Elira understood with absolute certainty what she must do. This little star did not belong in her earthly garden, no matter how magical it might be. It belonged among its fellows in the vast expanse above, contributing its light to the great tapestry of night that watched over all sleeping things. She looked up at the sky, noting the position of the moon and the gradual progression of stars across the heavens. Time was passing, and she knew that somewhere in the distance, the dream bells of the kingdom's highest tower would chime at midnight, marking the end of the magical hours when such wonders as this were possible. The star hummed softly in her hands, a sound so low it was felt rather than heard, and in that gentle vibration she sensed its trust in her wisdom and kindness. Whatever journey lay ahead, she would not undertake it alone. Princess Elira's decision was made with the swift certainty that comes from a heart guided by compassion. The little star needed to return to its place in the heavens, and she would be the one to help it find its way home. Time was precious. She could feel it slipping away like sand through her fingers, each moment bringing the midnight chime of the dream bells closer. Moving with quiet purpose, she retreated to her chambers to gather the few items she would need for her journey. From her dressing table, she took her most treasured possession, a lantern crafted by the kingdom's master artisans from glass so pure it seemed to be made of crystallized air itself. The lantern's frame was wrought from silver that had been blessed under a dozen full moons, and its light was no ordinary flame, but rather a gentle radiance that never flickered or dimmed. Next, she selected her softest shawl, woven from silk that had been spun by moonlight and dyed in shades of deep twilight blue. This she wrapped carefully around the fallen star, creating a nest of comfort that would protect it during their journey while allowing its gentle light to shine through the delicate fabric. The castle slept around her as she made her way through corridors she had known since childhood. The guards at their posts dozed peacefully in their chairs, heads nodding gently as they dreamed of distant homes and loved ones. Even the night servants moved with the languid grace of sleepwalkers, their tasks performed with the automatic ease of long practice. Princess Elira passed among them like a ghost, her bare feet making no sound on the cool stone floors. The castle's great doors opened at her touch with barely a whisper of sound, as if the very building conspired to aid her in her mission. Beyond the threshold lay a world transformed by night and magic. The familiar grounds of her home appeared entirely different under the moon's silver glow, as if she had stepped through a doorway into a realm of dreams made manifest. The moonlight path stretched before her, visible only to those whose hearts were pure and whose intentions were guided by love. It appeared as a ribbon of luminescent silver winding away from the castle and into the depths of the whispering woods beyond. This path was known in the oldest stories of the kingdom, spoken of in whispered tales passed down from grandmother to grandchild, but few had ever seen it with their own eyes. As Princess Elira stepped onto the path, the star in her arms pulsed with renewed vigor, as if recognizing that their journey toward home had truly begun. The lantern in her other hand cast its gentle radiance in a circle around them, revealing wonders that existed only in the magical hours between sunset and dawn. The forest that bordered the castle grounds was alive with the quiet activities of nocturnal creatures, but these were not the ordinary animals of daylight hours. Fireflies the size of hummingbirds drifted between the trees, their bodies glowing with soft pulses of blue and green and gold, moving with such deliberate slowness that they seemed to be dancing to music only they could hear. Their light painted shifting patterns on the bark of ancient oaks and towering pines, creating a living tapestry that changed with each gentle breeze. Among the roots of these great trees, families of deer had settled for the night, their forms ethereal in the moonlight. These were not ordinary deer, but creatures touched by the same magic that infused all of Leora during the nighttime hours. Their antlers were like polished silver, branching into patterns that seemed to mirror the constellations above, and their eyes held a wisdom that spoke of centuries spent as guardians of the forest's secrets. As Princess Elira passed, the deer lifted their heads in acknowledgement, their movements slow and ceremonial. The great stag who led them stepped forward and bowed his magnificent head, his antlers catching the light of her lantern and reflecting it back in cascades of silver sparkles. In his gesture, she read both blessing and encouragement for the journey ahead. The path led deeper into the woods where the trees grew taller and their canopy thicker, creating a cathedral of living pillars beneath a ceiling of interwoven branches. Here the air itself seemed to shimmer with magic, and the very atmosphere hummed with life and ancient power. Strange flowers bloomed in the shadows, blossoms that opened only in darkness and glowed with their own inner light, adding their illumination to the gentle radiance of her lantern. Princess Elira walked steadily forward, her steps sure despite the unfamiliar terrain. The star in her arm served as both compass and companion, its light growing stronger as they moved away from the earthly realm and closer to the celestial sphere where it belonged. Behind them, the castle grew smaller and smaller until it was no more than a distant glimmer. while ahead stretched the promise of adventure and the hope of a star's return to its rightful place among its kindred in the sky. The night embraced them both, and their journey into the realm of wonders had truly begun. The deeper Princess Elira ventured into the whispering woods, the more the forest revealed its true nature as a place where the ordinary laws of the world held little sway. The trees here were ancient beyond reckoning, their trunks so massive that it would have taken a dozen people holding hands to encircle them. These were the echoing pines, named for their unique property of catching sounds and returning them, transformed into something even more beautiful than the original. As Princess Elira walked the luminous path, she found herself humming one of her garden lullabies, the melody rising unbidden from her lips as naturally as breathing. The sound drifted upward into the vast canopy overhead, and within moments the trees began to respond. The melody came back to her, but it was no mere echo. It was the same song harmonized and enriched, as if a choir of gentle voices had taken up her tune and woven it into something approaching the celestial. The effect was so beautiful that tears of wonder sprang to her eyes. The star in her arms pulsed in rhythm with the music, its light growing stronger and more vibrant with each note that cascaded down from the pine boughs above. It was as if the forest itself was singing a lullaby to help guide the little star on its journey home. A soft rustling in the branches above caught her attention, and Princess Elira looked up to see a figure descending with the grace of falling leaves. It was an owl, but no ordinary bird of prey. This creature was nearly as large as she was, with feathers that seemed to be woven from moonlight itself, and eyes that held depths of wisdom accumulated over countless centuries. The great owl settled on a branch at her eye level and regarded her with those ancient, knowing eyes. When it spoke, its voice was like the sound of wind through dry leaves, soft and rustling yet perfectly clear. "Princess of the gentle heart," the owl intoned, each word measured and deliberate, "you carry starlight in your arms and follow paths that few may see. Yet the way ahead holds riddles within riddles, and only those who understand the language of dreams may pass." Princess Elira inclined her head respectfully, recognizing the presence of a being far older and wiser than herself. "Great guardian of the forest," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, "I seek only to return this lost star to its home in the sky before the dream bells chime midnight. Will you share your wisdom with one who travels in love?" The owl's head tilted, studying both the princess and the star she carried. "3 paths lie before you, each leading to the same destination but by different means. The first path is the shortest but steepest, climbing directly toward the stars through cliffs that sing with the voices of the wind. The second path is the longest but gentlest, winding through valleys where time moves like honey and streams flow upward toward the moon. The third path is neither short nor long, but passes through the realm of dreams themselves, where nothing is as it seems and everything is as it should be." Princess Elira considered the owl's words carefully, feeling the weight of the star in her arms and the steady pulse of its fading light. "Which path would you choose, wise one, if you carried the hope of a star's return?" The owl's eyes seemed to twinkle with approval at her question. "The path I would choose is the path that follows the heart's true compass. Look not with your eyes, child of light, but with the star itself. It knows the way to its dwelling place better than any earthly guide." As if responding to the owl's words, the star in Princess Elira's arms began to glow more brightly, and she felt a gentle tugging sensation, as if the star were trying to pull her in a particular direction. Following this ethereal guidance, she found her gaze drawn to what appeared to be the middle path, the one that was neither shortest nor longest, but which seemed to shimmer with a quality that made her heart feel both peaceful and excited. "Thank you, guardian," she said, bowing again to the great owl. "Your wisdom illuminates the darkness and makes the way clear." The owl spread its vast wings and prepared to take flight. But before departing, it dropped something at her feet. A single feather that glowed with the same soft radiance as moonlight on snow. "A gift for the journey," the owl said. "When the way seems darkest, let this feather light your path." As the magnificent creature disappeared into the canopy above, Princess Elira carefully tucked the glowing feather into her shawl alongside. The star. The forest around her seemed to sigh with contentment, and the echoing pines began to sing again, their harmonized melody providing a gentle soundtrack for the next stage of her journey. She had not gone much further along the path when she encountered another group of forest dwellers. In a small clearing where wildflowers glowed like captured starlight, a family of foxes had made their bed for the night. The adult foxes were already deep in slumber, their red gold fur seeming to absorb and reflect the gentle light of the magical blossoms around them. But the smallest fox, barely more than a kit, was still awake, watching her approach with bright, curious eyes. Princess Elira knelt at the edge of the clearing, not wanting to disturb the sleeping family. The young fox rose and padded toward her on silent paws, showing no fear of the stranger who carried light in her arms. When it reached her, the kit sat back on its haunches and tilted its head, studying the star with obvious fascination. "You're helping it find its way home, aren't you?" the fox asked, its voice like the whisper of wind through tall grass. "I can see the homesickness in its light. I know what that feels like." "Yes, little one," Princess Elira replied softly. "Do you know something of being far from where you belong?" The fox nodded solemnly. "My family and I came from the northern forests, where the snow never melts and the aurora dances every night. We traveled south following the warm winds, but sometimes I dream of the ice caves where I was born and wonder if we'll ever see them again." Understanding the kit's longing, Princess Elira felt her heart swell with compassion. "Home lives in the heart as much as in any place," she said gently. "Your family is your true home, and they are here with you now. But perhaps someday the warm winds will carry you north again when the time is right for such a journey." The young fox seemed comforted by her words, and as a gesture of gratitude, it reached behind itself and drew forth a single tail feather from a bird that must have been nesting nearby. But this was no ordinary feather. It glowed with a soft golden light and seemed to pulse with its own inner warmth. "This fell from a phoenix that passed through our forest last spring," the fox explained, offering the feather to Princess Elira. "Mother said it would bring courage to whoever needed it most. I think your star might need some courage for the journey ahead." Princess Elira accepted the gift with profound gratitude, adding it to the owl's feather in her shawl. As she did so, the star in her arms pulsed brighter still, as if drawing strength from these tokens of kindness and courage. The young fox returned to its family, curling up between its parents with a contented sigh. Princess Elira rose and continued on her way, feeling more hopeful than ever that her mission would succeed. The forest around her seemed to respond to her growing confidence, the path beneath her feet glowing more brightly, and the air itself seeming to sparkle with anticipation. Behind her, the echoing pines continued their gentle chorus, and ahead lay whatever wonders the night still held in store. The path wound gradually downward through the forest, until Princess Elira found herself standing at the shore of a lake so perfectly still it seemed to have been crafted from polished silver. This was the Mirror Lake, spoken of in whispered legends as a place where the boundary between earth and sky became so thin as to be nearly invisible. The lake stretched before her like a second sky, its surface so flawlessly smooth that it reflected not only the stars above but seemed to contain them, as if entire constellations swam in its depths. At first glance, it was impossible to tell where the real sky ended and its reflection began. The moon hung suspended both above and below, creating a corridor of silver light that stretched across the water toward the far shore. At the water's edge, as if placed there by some benevolent magic, waited a small boat that seemed to have been carved from a single massive pearl. Its hull curved in the gentle crescent shape of a new moon, and its interior was lined with cushions of the softest silk in shades of midnight blue and silver. No oars were visible, for this vessel was moved not by physical effort, but by the pure intention of its passenger. Princess Elira stepped carefully into the boat, marveling at how it barely rocked despite her movement. As soon as she was seated with the star cradled securely in her lap, the boat began to move of its own accord, gliding across the mirror-smooth surface with such perfect grace that it created no wake, no ripples, no disturbance whatsoever in the lake's pristine surface. The sensation of floating across the mirror lake was unlike anything Princess Elira had ever experienced. It felt as though she were drifting through the sky itself, suspended between the stars above and their perfect reflections below. The air was so still that her own breathing seemed loud in the profound silence, yet there was nothing oppressive about the quiet. Rather, it felt sacred, as if she had entered a natural cathedral where even whispers would be inappropriate. As they progressed across the lake, the star in her arms began to exhibit signs of increasing excitement. Its light pulsed more rapidly now, and she could feel a gentle vibration running through its form, like the purring of a contented kitten. The star seemed to recognize something in this place, some quality that spoke of home and belonging. Looking up at the sky above and then down at its perfect reflection below, Princess Elira began to understand why the star was responding so strongly. Here, in this place where earth and heaven met in perfect harmony, the little star was closer to its celestial siblings than it had been since its fall. The boundary between terrestrial and cosmic realms was so thin that the star could almost touch its fellow stars, both those shining above and those reflected in the water's depths. The boat carried them steadily across the lake, moving with a purpose and direction that seemed to come from the star itself. As they traveled, Princess Elira became aware of other passengers sharing the lake with them. Schools of fish swam in the depths below, but these were no ordinary fish. They glowed with an inner light that matched the stars above, and they moved in perfect formation, creating shifting patterns that mirrored the constellations overhead. A family of swans approached the boat, their feathers appearing silver-white in the moonlight. These graceful creatures swam alongside the pearl vessel for a time, their long necks curved in elegant arcs and their movements creating the only gentle ripples on the otherwise perfect surface. The largest swan, clearly the patriarch of the group, raised his head and sang a single note so pure and clear that it seemed to make the very air shimmer with its beauty. The note was taken up by his family, and soon the entire lake resonated with their song, a melody that spoke of journeys completed, of loved ones reunited, of the joy that comes when something lost is finally found. The star in Princess Elira's arms pulsed in harmony with their music, its light growing steadily brighter, as if drawing strength from their encouraging song. As they neared the far shore, Princess Elira noticed that the landscape ahead was different from the gentle forest they had left behind. Here the land rose in gentle slopes covered with silver grass that sparkled in the moonlight like scattered diamonds. Ancient trees dotted the hillsides, but these were not the towering pines of the forest. These were smaller, more delicate, trees with branches that seemed to reach directly toward the stars, as if yearning to bridge the gap between earth and sky. The boat came to rest at a small dock carved from the same pearl-like material as the vessel itself. Princess Elira stepped onto the pier, feeling the solid ground beneath her feet while still carrying with her the sense of floating that had characterized their journey across the mirror lake. The star in her arms was now glowing so brightly that its light illuminated the path ahead, showing her the way up the silver slopes toward whatever destination awaited them. She turned back once to look at the lake, now seeing it from this new perspective. The boat had already begun to drift, back toward the far shore, ready to carry the next traveler who might have need of passage between the worlds. The swans had gathered in the center of the lake, their forms silhouetted against the reflected stars, still singing their song of encouragement and hope. With renewed determination, Princess Elira began her ascent of the silver slopes, following a path that seemed to glow with its own inner light. The star in her arms hummed with increasing frequency, its vibrations creating a gentle warmth that spread through her entire being. They were close now. She could feel it in the very air around them. The star's home lay just ahead, somewhere among the peaks that reached toward the heavens like fingers stretching to touch the face of eternity. The silver slopes led steadily upward, carrying Princess Elira through a landscape that seemed to exist in the space between waking and dreaming. The grass beneath her feet was soft as silk and seemed to glow with its own inner light, each blade catching and reflecting the radiance of the star in her arms. As she climbed higher, the air grew thinner and somehow more luminous, as if infused with stardust that made every breath sparkle in her lungs. This was the Mountain of Whispers, the highest peak in all the kingdom of Leora, a place where the earth reached so close to the heavens that the two realms touched and intermingled. The mountain was alive with sounds that existed nowhere else in the mortal world, not quite voices, not quite music, but something that partook of both and transcended either. The whispers began as Princess Elira reached the mountain's lower slopes, so soft at first that she thought they might be merely the sound of wind through the silver grass. But as she climbed higher, the whispers grew more distinct, and she began to realize their true nature. These were the dreams of everyone in the kingdom below, carried upward on the night breezes to dance among the stars, before drifting back down to find their sleeping recipients. "A dream of flying on wings made of sunlight," whispered one voice, passing by her ear like a gentle breeze. The voice was that of a child filled with wonder and the pure joy of imagined flight. "A dream of reuniting with a beloved grandmother, who passed into the starlight years ago," murmured another, this one carrying the deep longing of an adult heart that still grieved for love that transcended death. "A dream of swimming with dolphins in waters that sparkle like liquid diamonds," sighed a third, speaking of adventures in realms where the impossible became not only possible, but inevitable. Each whisper that passed by carried with it a warmth and beauty that made Princess Elira's heart swell with happiness for the dreamers below. She realized that she was witnessing something sacred, the very mechanism by which dreams traveled from the earth to the stars and back again, completing the eternal cycle that brought hope and wonder to sleeping souls throughout the kingdom. The star in her arms responded to each passing whisper with pulses of increasing brightness, as if recognizing in these earthly dreams something akin to its own celestial nature. Dreams and stars, Princess Elira realized, were made of the same essential substance, hope given form, wishes transformed into light, the aspirations of hearts that refused to be bound by the limitations of the physical world. As she climbed higher, the path beneath her feet began to glow more brightly, responding to each step with increased luminescence. She understood that the mountain was acknowledging her purpose, recognizing in her mission something worthy of its assistance. The path was not merely guiding her upward, it was celebrating her journey, honoring the love and determination that had brought her so far from the safety of her castle. The whispers grew more numerous as she ascended, creating a symphony of dreams that encompassed every hope and aspiration of which the human heart was capable. Some dreams were simple, a child's wish for a pet puppy, an elderly person's desire for one more spring to see their garden bloom. Others were complex and layered, dreams of artistic creation, of scientific discovery, of love that could bridge any distance or overcome any obstacle. A dream of painting pictures with colors that don't exist in the waking world, breathed one voice, carrying with it the passionate yearning of an artist's soul. A dream of discovering a cure for sadness itself, whispered another, speaking of a healer's deepest wish to ease all suffering. A dream of writing music that can make the stars themselves dance, sighed a third, filled with the composer's desire to create beauty that could move the very heavens. Princess Elira found herself smiling through tears of joy as she listened to these whispered aspirations. Each dream that passed by was a testament to the incredible capacity of the human spirit to hope, to wish, to imagine possibilities beyond the constraints of daily existence. The dreamers below might be asleep, but their hearts were wide awake, sending their deepest desires up to dance among the stars. The star in her arms was now pulsing so brightly that its light illuminated the entire slope around them. She could feel its excitement growing with each step they took toward the summit, its vibrations creating a warmth that spread through her entire being. They were almost home. She could sense it in the star's increasing agitation, in the way it seemed to pull her forward with an urgency that had been building throughout their entire journey. The path curved around a final bend, and suddenly, Princess Elira found herself on a plateau that seemed to exist at the very edge of the world. The summit of the Mountain of Whispers was a place of impossible beauty, where the earth finally surrendered to the sky, and the two became one. Here the stars seemed close enough to touch, hanging in the darkness like lanterns suspended just beyond the reach of her outstretched hand. The whispers surrounded her on all sides now, creating a gentle chorus that seemed to welcome both her and the star she carried. This was the place where dreams were born and to which they returned, the sacred space where earthly hopes transformed into celestial light. Princess Elira understood that she stood at the very heart of the connection between her kingdom and the stars above. At the summit of the Mountain of Whispers, Princess Elira found herself in a place that defied earthly description. The plateau stretched before her, like a natural amphitheater carved from crystallized moonlight, its surface smooth as glass, yet warm beneath her feet. Around the edges of this celestial platform, flowers grew that existed nowhere else in all. The world, blossoms of pure starlight that pulsed in harmony with the constellations overhead. The sky above was closer here than anywhere else in the mortal realm, the stars hanging like jewels on invisible threads that seemed to brush the very air around her. The moon, full and radiant, appeared so near that she felt she could reach out and caress its silver surface. This was the threshold between earth and heaven, the place where the boundaries dissolved and miracles became as natural as breathing. Princess Elira moved to the center of the plateau, where a small rise of crystal white stone created a natural altar beneath the open sky. The star in her arms was now vibrating with such intensity that she could barely contain its eagerness to rejoin its celestial family. Its light had grown so bright that it illuminated the entire summit, turning the crystalline platform into a beacon that could surely be seen from the farthest corners of the kingdom below. With infinite tenderness, Princess Elira unwrapped the star from her twilight blue shawl, revealing its full radiance for the first time since she had found it in her garden. The little star was beautiful beyond words, its surface swirling with patterns of light that seemed to contain entire galaxies. In miniature, as she held it aloft, its light reached toward the sky like a flower turning toward the sun, seeking its place among the cosmic dance that had continued without it. "Little star," she whispered, her voice filled with both joy and a touch of sadness. At their approaching farewell, "You have been a wonderful companion on this journey, but now it's time for you to go home. Your brothers and sisters are waiting for you among the constellations, and the night sky is incomplete without your light. The star pulsed once, a gentle throb of radiance that she interpreted as gratitude and farewell. Then, as if released, from some invisible tether that had bound it to the earth, the star began to rise from her upturned palms. It ascended slowly at first, floating upward like a soap bubble filled with liquid light. As it rose, it grew brighter and more beautiful, its radiance expanding to illuminate not just the mountain summit, but the entire landscape spread out below. Princess Elira watched in wonder as valleys and forests, lakes and meadows were bathed in the star's gentle glow, creating a scene of such ethereal beauty that it seemed like a glimpse into paradise itself. The star continued its ascent, and as it drew closer to its celestial home, something magical began to happen. The other stars in the sky began to pulse in response, their light growing stronger as if welcoming their lost sibling back to the eternal dance. Constellations that had seemed dim or incomplete suddenly blazed with renewed vigor, and new patterns of light began to emerge as the cosmic harmony was restored. When the little star finally took its place among its fellows, a wave of gentle warmth washed over the entire kingdom. It was as if the star, in gratitude for its rescue, was blessing all the sleeping souls below with dreams of particular beauty and peace. Princess Elira felt this warmth flow through her own heart, carrying with it a sense of completion and fulfillment that made her soul sing with joy. The moon above seemed to shift slightly in its position, and for a moment Princess Elira could have sworn she saw a smile cross its silver face. Not a literal expression, but a subtle change in the quality of its light that spoke of approval and gratitude for the kindness she had shown. Standing alone, on the summit of the Mountain of Whispers, Princess Elira felt no sadness at the star's departure, only a deep satisfaction that came from knowing she had helped restore the natural order of things. The night sky was complete once more, and somewhere in the kingdom below, dreamers would sleep more peacefully because of the star's return to its rightful place. The whispers of dreams continued to swirl around her, but they seemed gentler now, more harmonious, as if the star's return had brought greater peace to the sleeping minds that generated them. She listened to a few more as they drifted past, dreams of gardens that bloom in every season, of books that write themselves, of love that grows stronger with each passing day. Eventually, knowing that the dream bells would chime midnight before long, Princess Elira began her descent from the sacred summit. The path down the mountain seemed shorter than the ascent had been, as if the mountain itself was eager to speed her safely home. The silver grass beneath her feet glowed more brightly than before, and the air seemed to carry her downward with each step, making her feel as light as the star she had just released. At the shore of the Mirror Lake, the pearl-shaped boat was waiting for her, its interior still lined with silk cushions in midnight blue and silver. As she settled into the vessel, it began to move across the perfectly still water, carrying her back toward the forest with the same graceful motion that had brought her to the mountain's base. The swans were still there, floating in the center of the lake, like living sculptures carved from moonlight. As her boat passed near them, they raised their heads and sang again, a different song this time, one that spoke of missions accomplished and heroes returning home. Their music followed her across the water, a gentle accompaniment to her homeward journey. The whispering woods welcomed her back with the same harmony of voices that had blessed her earlier passage. The echoing pines took up the swan's song and wove it into an even more complex melody, adding harmonies that seemed to incorporate the whispered dreams from the mountain and the gentle lapping of waves against the lake's shore. The great owl appeared briefly among the branches overhead, offering a solemn nod of approval before disappearing once more into the forest's depths. The family of foxes was still sleeping in their flower-dotted clearing, but the young kit raised its head as she passed and offered a sleepy smile before curling back into the warmth of its parents' embrace. The fireflies continued their slow dance among the trees, their light seeming brighter and more joyful than it had during her outward journey. As Princess Elira emerged from the forest and saw her castle rising before her in the distance, she heard the first gentle chime of the dream bells echoing across the kingdom. Midnight was arriving, but she had accomplished her mission with time to spare. The fallen star was home among its celestial family, and the natural order of dreams and starlight had been restored. The castle grounds were exactly as she had left them, peaceful and quiet under the moon's gentle radiance. The guards still dozed at their posts, and the night servants continued their soft-footed duties, unaware that their princess had undertaken one of the most important journeys of her life while they slept. Princess Elira made her way through the familiar corridors of her castle, her heart full of quiet joy and wonder at the night's events. Her bare feet knew every stone of these floors, every turn of these hallways, but somehow everything seemed slightly transformed by her adventure. The tapestries on the walls appeared more vibrant, the moonlight streaming through the windows seemed more luminous, and even the air itself felt charged with magic and possibility. She climbed the winding stairs to her tower chamber and set her lantern carefully on its usual place on her dressing table. The glass vessel still glowed with its eternal flame, seeming somehow brighter than before, as if it too had been touched by the magic of their journey. The glowing feathers gifted to her by the owl and the young fox she placed in a small crystal box, treasures that would remind her always of the kindness she had encountered in the dark forest. But before retiring to her bed, Princess Elira felt drawn once more to her star garden. She descended the steps to the garden level and stepped out into the magical space that had been the beginning of her adventure. The garden was as beautiful as ever, with its flowers of living light and its paths of starstone. But something was different. Every flower in the garden was glowing more brightly than she had ever seen before. The silver roses pulsed with renewed vigor. The luminous lilies stood taller and more radiant, and even the smallest forget-me-nots sparkled like captured stars. The entire garden seemed to be celebrating, responding to the successful return of the fallen star with an outpouring of joy and light. As Princess Elira walked among her flowers, she realized that the dreams they contained were more vivid and beautiful than they had ever been before. The dream bubbles that rose from the petals were larger and more luminous, carrying within them visions of such beauty and hope that they seemed to light up the entire night sky as they drifted toward the sleeping kingdom below. In the exact spot where she had found the fallen star among the petals of her largest silver rose, something new had appeared. It was a single flower unlike any other in the garden, a blossom that seemed to be made of pure starlight, its petals translucent and shimmering with all the colors of the aurora. This was a gift from the star itself, she realized, a token of gratitude that would bloom in her garden for all time, reminding her of their shared adventure and the magic that was possible when kindness guided one's actions. Princess Elira knelt beside this miraculous new flower and whispered a soft lullaby, the same melody she had hummed during their journey through the forest. The flower responded by pulsing gently, and for a moment she could have sworn she heard an echo of the star's gentle humming carried on the night breeze like a message from the heavens above. As the final chimes of midnight echoed across the kingdom, Princess Elira made her way back to her chambers and prepared for sleep. She changed into her nightgown of softest silk and climbed into her bed, where pillows of cloud-white down awaited her weary head. The events of the night seemed almost dreamlike now, so wondrous and magical that they might have been products of her imagination rather than actual experiences. But as she settled into sleep, Princess Elira heard something that confirmed the reality of her adventure. From high above, carried on the gentlest of breezes, came a whisper so soft It was barely audible. "Thank you." It was the voice of the us star, now safely home among its celestial family, sending its gratitude across the vast distance between earth and sky. The sound filled her heart with warmth and contentment, and she drifted into the most peaceful sleep she had ever known. As this Princess Elira slept, she found herself dreaming of the most beautiful visions. She dreamed of stars twinkling in gardens where every flower was a wish made manifest, of silver petals floating upward on currents of gentle wind, and of songs so beautiful they could make the very heavens weep with joy. In her dreams she walked, again through moonlit forests and across mirror-still lakes, accompanied by the warm presence of friends both human and magical. But these were not ordinary dreams. They were the dreams that come to those who have touched the divine, who have participated in the great mysteries that connect all living things. Her dreams were filled with the whispers she had heard on the Mountain of Whispers, with the songs of swans and the wisdom of ancient owls, with the kindness of forest creatures and the gratitude of stars. Throughout the kingdom of Leora, other dreamers shared in this blessing. Children dreamed of adventures in lands where kindness was the greatest magic, where helping others brought rewards beyond imagination. Adults dreamed of finding their own fallen stars, of embarking on journeys that would test their courage and reveal the true depths of their compassion. Even the elderly dreamed of renewed wonder, of seeing the world again through eyes unclouded by cynicism or despair. The star garden continued to bloom throughout the night, sending its enhanced dreams across the kingdom like seeds of light scattered on fertile ground. And high above, the returned star twinkled with special brightness, adding its own radiance to the cosmic dance that has guided dreamers since the beginning of time. When dawn finally broke over the silver hills surrounding the kingdom of Leora, Princess Elira woke with a heart full of peace and a soul refreshed by the magic of the night before. She rose and went to her window, looking out over her kingdom as it awakened to a new day. Somewhere far below, people were stirring from sleep filled with dreams more beautiful than any they had experienced before, though they might never know the reason for this blessing. And in her garden, the miraculous starflower continued to bloom, a permanent reminder that magic exists for those brave enough to seek it, kind enough to nurture it, and loving enough to share it with others. For in the kingdom where stars bloom in gardens and dreams drift like petals on the wind, there will always be those ready to answer when the lost call out for help, when the fallen seek to rise again, and when the impossible asks only for someone willing to believe. The story of Princess Elira and the fallen star became a whispered legend throughout the kingdom, passed down from parent to child, from dreamer to dreamer, carrying with it the eternal message that kindness is the greatest magic of all, and that sometimes the most important journeys are those we take not for ourselves, but for others who cannot find their way home alone. And so, wherever you are in this vast world, remember that the stars are watching and the dreams are listening. When night falls and the world grows quiet, close your eyes and listen for the whispers carried on the evening breeze. For you never know when you might hear the call of something lost and lonely, waiting for a kind heart to guide it safely home. Sleep now, softly and slowly, just like the princess, and let your dreams carry you to gardens where stars bloom eternal, where kindness lights the way through the darkest forest, and where every act of love creates ripples that reach all the way to the heavens above. The end.